Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans. You can check us out. This is Good Morning Comrade. You can check us out at goodmorningcomrade.com. You can also listen to us every week on Tuesdays. We also release shows on our podcast feed on Thursdays. And we're what's going on, folks? Today in the studio we have Jeff. We also have
Aaron. Hello.
And we have Scott, which is me.
That's you. So what's been going on, folks? How y'all doing?
Doing all right. I'm working. That's good.
You're working like at a job?
Yes, at a job. So all our fans can calm down trying to scour the internet to get me a job. I appreciate it, but
we'll just delete all those emails in the inbox. We'll make sure that you don't they don't worry. They can sleep at night. Yeah. Thanks to Scott having a job at someplace in town.
Yes, I work someplace.
I also am working. Hooray.
Hey, everybody.
Today was a 2 Walmart day.
Two
separate Walmarts.
This is a 100% employed podcast.
Let's hear it for selling your labor. Yeah. Hey. No. So anyway, what else? What else, guys?
Oh, man. I don't know. Didn't you have a big meeting you made, huh? You met somebody.
I bet her she just leave over the weekend. No big deal. It was
no big deal. Oh, no big deal.
She was so for those of you who don't know, she's a congresswoman from Michigan, Detroit area. She is Muslim American. She's like a mom. You know, she's one of these like super regular people. She was famous for like initially being. But she's part of the squad, which is like these 4 congresswomen, Ilhan Omar and AOC and her and Ayanna Pressley. I don't know how I feel about it.
She was initially famous for saying that she was going to impeach the mother effer.
Yeah, about Trump when she was sworn in.
Civility in politics.
Oh no, she said mother effer on.
Can't believe she did a
floor of the hallowed floor of Congress. That's not what you don't say the F word. That place is for declaring wars and cutting social programs,
beating somebody almost to death.
Well, oh gosh. So are you talking about what was that guy's name? I remember this. This was something. There was this in the prior to the Civil War. One congressman essentially gave like a long speech against. And it's not the only time, by the way, that this has happened, but he gave like a long speech against slavery, and one of the Southern congressmen like beat him with a hickory cane. I think his name was Sumner, if I'm not mistaken.
That's too funny. That reminds me, there was I want to say it was like a couple years ago. I can't remember what country it was, but it was definitely a country in Africa. Their parliament just erupted into a giant fight, and they were throwing chairs at each other, and like it wasn't like a hockey fight where they were all like batted. It was like a legitimate drag down, knockout brawl.
I think.
What is that?
I think that's like a thing in other countries.
That's good. No, I think that these people should be fighting one another. They should be on the floor and they should be beating the crap out of each other.
There's one country in particular that I think might be South Korea where it's like notorious for happening, but I think there was some Eastern European country where they actually had to tear gas the members of Congress.
Yes.
I've been watching a lot about Brexit and specifically with Boris Johnson, and I was thinking about that. You know, it's like saying impeach the mother effer like is so uncivil, and like
all they do is like the dozens on one another. They're just insult comedy.
They were just like screaming at each other, like.
Yeah, there's a lot of like jeering, like in the middle. Like if this would never happen in the U.S. Congress. They're a bunch of nerds, thin-skinned
it happens
turds.
on Twitter with the U.S. congressmen. Like U.S. congressmen on Twitter will like very thinly veiled make references to like wanting other people getting murdered. So.
No, they'll advocate for like guys like what's the guy from Clay Higgins? He's from Lafayette, and he's one of these guys who will basically just advocate for genocide on Twitter.
I think there's like there's like a real hierarchy to it where like the lower down state senator you are, like if you're in the lower house of like a state senate, you'll basically just like say you're gonna kill somebody with a gun.
Clay Higgins is a U.S. House of Representatives.
No way! I thought he was like a state senator.
I'm looking it up right now, but I'm like 100% certain that Clay Higgins is in U.S. Yeah, as American Republican Congressman reserve. So he was reserve enforcement officer. He's with the U.S. representative for the 3rd district. Like I said, he is Representative Yosemite Sam that we always joke about.
Does he wear like his state trooper uniform to Congress?
I wouldn't be shocked if he had. I mean, that's what like George Washington literally did that when we went to the Continental Congress and like make me the general. I'm dressed like a general. You might as well make me the general.
I didn't know George Washington was a state trooper.
George Washington was like he was basically like his entire thing was he wanted to like snap up land in the West, and like the king and the parliament had decided, well, you can't go west of the Appalachians because y'all keep getting into wars with Native Americans, and that keeps costing us lots of money, so you can't do that anymore. And like George Washington was like, no way, I'm ready to start a war about this.
Excuse you, he can't tell a lie, so that's a plus. And then he freed his slaves at the end, so no harm, no foul.
Did he really?
That's really weird. Like my Louisiana state history education says that there was something about a cherry tree, and he had a dad.
Him and Abraham Lincoln. It was the same tree. Yeah. It was the same cherry tree.
Lincoln learned to read by candlelight
in a log cabin.
Yeah, no. If you really want to make people upset, talk about slaves with the founding fathers. Yeah. People don't love to be reminded of that.
That Jefferson was not only was he not only what?
I mean, all of them really.
Well, Jefferson was particular, like in the sense that he's like known to basically like have the relation with Sally Hemings, where they had this sort of like, you know, totally equal power dynamic relationship when he was a slave.
Do y'all remember? So a few months ago, Ancestry.com came out with a commercial that was like essentially, it was like, oh, find out like what's in your past. And it was basically a white man and a black woman meeting up in secret at night. And they were in time period dress, and they were essentially, we can run away together to the north to be together. Dear. And I was like, no.
They won't smile upon that, right? They don't do that. That's bad to them.
Don Draper wasn't working on that commercial.
That's still a hot button in 2019. I mean,
he wouldn't put that kind of smut up for the award.
No, I saw it and I was like, oh, buddy, this is gonna be, people are gonna be pleased.
Ancestry.com, yeah, that's true.
They're using really illegal means to steal all your like blood data.
I mean, to be honest, I'd rather the Mormons have my DNA than the federal government. So.
Oh, they work with the federal government, though.
No, Ancestry.com doesn't work with the federal government. It's
really?
Ones. Yeah, so
23andMe, they will sell you out immediately, but not Ancestry.com is the good,
which works with the government. But the Mormons just want to have all of your ancestry information so they can like posthumously baptize you so that you can enter the kingdom of heaven.
Is that serious? Yeah. Is that real? Oh, I knew they did that.
I mean, honestly, you
know what? I don't care. Honestly, if that gets me into not hell, I'll take it.
That's fine by me. Like if I have that base covered on the slim chance that everything Mormons said is true.
I can see how other people would get upset about it, though.
I mean, I don't know. Everyone thinks I'm so like strange that I don't want to give my DNA. I'm like, no, I don't really need that to be, somewhere. Mm-hmm. But everyone, and then everyone's gonna be so shocked when they commit a crime. And then all of a sudden
giving up biometrics is not a good thing necessarily.
Yeah, I just don't know how I'm going to get my blood into an email.
I mean, isn't it just saliva? Do you have to, is it like a fingerprint?
No, those are, I think I know 23andMe, my mother-in-law like got us one of those kits that we have had for like 3 years and have never used. But I think that they need like a certain sample of saliva. I'm not sure how much it is. But yeah, that's what it is. It's a saliva sample. I know I've seen like the cheek sample, like the inner skin from the cheek. You could like scrape it, but I don't know if that's for 23. I didn't even open the box and read the directions, so I'm definitely not the right person to ask about this.
It's so funny to me though that there's like this weird intersection of like people who believe in like QAnon and then will also still be very pro giving up their DNA. It's like it's a weird it's a weird intersection.
I have a theory about this.
It's like the same people that are like, oh yeah, if the government tries to take my guns, I'm gonna fight them. But also like, oh, I love the cops. Like, where do they think the rubber meets the road there? Like,
They think Antifa's coming for the guns.
Right.
what were you saying about 23andMe?
So I have an opinion on our theory, perhaps, on why like a lot of people, not everybody, sure, but definitely like the people that you were talking about, the gun loving. Okay, maybe I'm being too lazy here, but there are certain samples of the sort of like white identitarian community who want to like go like get their blood samples like taken care of and like compare with other people how pure their line of blood is.
I thought you were gonna say like they want to be off the hook. Like,
well, the thing is that everybody's from Africa and everybody's from like the Middle East, and so that's where like all people are come from the same place. So like considering these different like races to be superior to one another is just completely and utter trash.
It's really taken the like a lot. So my family we're Irish American, and well, at least we thought we were Irish American until we did one of those. I obviously didn't, but my family did.
And your life got turned upside down.
So it turns out we're actually like mostly British, which is unfortunate for having the narrative of being like oppressed by.
And actually, you were the oppressors. You were the ones that were.
I'm actually like I'm not pumped about it, to be honest. I'm like Cromwell. No, thank you.
But actually, the New Model Army was extremely efficient and was only able to get together because of the organizing factors of religion.
I was talking to somebody from Britain the other day, and he was like, "Oh man, Ireland, it's weird because like that's where all the millionaires go to use as like a tax shell."
It is now, yeah. They've totally sort of, and this is, I'm not. Oh, so is this Republic of Ireland or is this Northern Ireland? Do you know the answer to that? It's Ireland itself, because that's something that has also sort of been hot in the news when you were talking about Brexit. One of the things that is still not to be determined if they do end up going through this no-deal Brexit is that there's the split between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And, you know,
they're beefing things
was
up.
not that long ago that the IRA was, you know, on the border, like, claiming that this is the real Ireland, and it was settled in the Good Friday Agreement in the 90s. Yeah, it was settled during the Good Friday agreements, and if the Britain pulls out of the EU, guess what? The troubles are back, baby.
Oh no!
So not only is the monarchy back when the Queen's like signing off on this prorogation of Parliament, which didn't even happen, so the Queen is actually meaningless. Yeah. But
more so now than before.
She was meaningful for like a half second, and then she's meaningless again. The monarchy was back, baby, and then the monarchy's actually gone. But and then there was the troubles are back. Essentially, like Northern Ireland and the freaking
legit scary.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, so again, we might not be ethnically Irish, but your
heart's in Ireland.
Yeah, my heart. So I mean, it's like every Irish American has some story about how their family member was in the IRA, and like mine was a great grandmother ran guns for the IRA. So I mean, like everybody in Northern Ireland did essentially.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, no, it's actually super interesting because I think we've just forgotten about it. Like I've been recently super interested because I don't know if y'all have been watching Dairy Girls on Netflix. It's
I don't watch any TV shows other than like sports and wrestling.
Good, your life will be enriched having watched it. But anyway, it's about a group of teens in Derry or Londonderry, depending on which side you're on, Protestant or Catholic.
Is that in Belfast? Or?
No, it's a city in Northern Ireland. So Derry for the Catholics, Londonderry for the Protestants. And it's just, they're just 90s teens, but it's kind of with the background of the Troubles. And that got me interested further. And then I read a book about, I've been like really deep diving, and it is fascinating. But one of the most, so this is like not a particularly deep point, but it's so interesting to me is, so Jerry Jerry Adams was like the kind of political leader of the IRA during the Troubles.
Right.
And they would allow him to be on TV, but they wouldn't allow his voice to be on TV. So then all of the news agencies would have to dub whatever he was saying with like an actor's voice.
Why?
So there's a history of like Irish actors having been the voice of Jerry Adams. Like,
oh
on
my
the
gosh.
BBC, which is bonkers.
Do you know any of the actors offhand? Like,
I'm trying to remember because there was one that I was like pretty surprised about, and I don't. But part of me wants to say one of the actors was actually married to one of the women who was like pretty prominent in the IRA specifically. It's honestly, so the book I read is called Say Anything, and it's like kind of a murder mystery, but also just like goes into the Troubles. I very much recommend it. It's so fascinating. Just kind of a lot of, and I mean, it'll make you hate Margaret Thatcher more than you already do.
Oh, we'll see about
kind of hard to believe.
But sure, why not? I can stand to hate her more.
Yeah, there's a lot of room left in this heart for hating Margaret Thatcher.
You're saying she's worse, okay?
Yeah, she just. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on, but it just made me think because I used to spend all my summers in Ireland when I was growing up, and I still have a lot of family over there. And I would there was like a couple times it was like a camp for like nerds basically, but anyway,
nerd camp.
I did that, and it was like it was like we did courses on kind of international law, and everyone, I think one of only a couple Americans in the program, and they were like could not understand the concept of like free speech and the way like we implement it here. And I remember so like the idea of letting somebody go on like on TV, because we were talking, I think, about Jerry Adams specifically, and the idea of like letting someone who is a terrorist or kind of, any other kind of non-socially acceptable person get on.
Not to call
revolutionary.
Yeah. Not to call Jerry Adams a terrorist.
But just letting anybody. So the example they used was like the KKK. So it would be like they could not understand how we would let someone from the KKK like discuss whatever they were discussing. That's like insane to them. And I remember little like 14-year-old me, I think I was like a libertarian back then, but was like, no, anybody that's our right. I will die for someone's right to say whatever they want to say. And now I'm like 32. And
I would die to let you spew your damaging and raceless, violent propaganda.
I was definitely 100% on board. And honestly,
you get taught that in school, though. You kind of get that whole thing of like, oh, I'm going to disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
It's a very noble thing. Like I remember feeling really noble.
It's a marketplace of ideas.
I remember the interaction, and it was a while ago. But I also
that's the Dave Rubin thing, Yeah. That's what Dave Rubin does. He basically comes in, he's like, oh yeah, sure, Richard Spencer, let me give you a platform and not challenge you in any meaningful way.
What a mess. But yeah, no, I was like, actually, now that I think about it, that might be my like woke origin story.
Yeah.
It was like because that was the first time I remember we had to do a project, and I don't even remember what mine was on. But I remember that someone chose to do the Iran-Contra scandal.
Nice.
And it was the first time that I had ever been exposed to someone criticizing the U.S. in like any sort of intense and like well-reasoned way.
Yeah, because even though we have this like alleged free speech or whatever, like what happens if you say, well, the thing that America did is bad, is like, well, you hate America.
Yeah.
There's this sort of way too chill like actual free speech. You can challenge it from these very powerful positions. And like if you remember, like nobody in Iran-Contra really got in any trouble.
Yeah, Oliver North like ran for president.
Yeah, Oliver North was like, wasn't he like the president of the NRA recently or something?
I think probably still
that Oliver North, the guy who like his job was to go in front of Congress and lie.
Yeah. Wayne LaPierre's like he's trying to always be the Tony Soprano. He's like, I don't want to be the president. I want to be like the guy behind the scenes or whatever. Like Charlton Heston, like I don't know, he might have had some like weird belief in guns or something or whatever. But Wayne LaPierre is like the weird puppet master.
Wayne LaPierre he's another bananas person. Him and Paul Manafort, I'm like, it's like you have so much money and like that's what you choose to use it on. Like I'm trying to remember because like I know Paul Manafort. Like one of the things was he had a what was like
Former-
a $30,000 ostrich skin like bomber jacket, which I was like, why? And then Wayne LaPierre was like spending that kind of money on his wife. But if you've ever seen his wife, I'm like, where did it go?
I really wish I could be rich so I could buy anything anybody told me was good.
But would you buy a $30,000 ostrich skin leather bomber jacket specifically? It looked like a members only jacket, just to be clear.
Well, that makes it good.
I mean, I think it's a good style actually.
But like
that's coming back around.
Not in like an ironic way.
Yeah.
Like in a $30,000 way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think leather jackets are pretty bad in general.
Like bad isn't like bad, or like bad isn't like not good.
I just think they're not very good.
Oh.
Like
They're fine.
if you dress like the Fonz, like
Hey.
yeah, like I don't think anybody's like really trying to have you around that much.
You would have a tough time with women's magazines because as soon as fall hits, they said, "Hey, transition your summer wardrobe to fall by just throwing a leather jacket on there."
I mean, I love the summer, but I hate wearing shorts. So that actually works for me really well.
Yeah,
Why do you hate wearing shorts? Shorts are awesome. Shorts are the best. If I could wear shorts to work, I would. That's okay. A little rude, but
we definitely hit on something.
sure. Let's talk about. Yeah, I know.
The therapist.
We
in me
struck a
wants
nerve.
To, we
yeah.
wanna,
What's your
poke
deal with
a little.
shorts, man?
I just don't own any shorts, and I don't want to buy any shorts.
So that means you hate shorts?
I mean, it's a strong position to take when I don't want to buy shorts.
It's a strong position to take because it's a heat wave and it's like 110 degrees.
Yeah, I
today.
know. I'm wearing shorts, man.
You're not wearing shorts. You're wearing pants.
Well, not today because I came from work.
Oh, okay, well.
Like, why is there this sort of mindset like men shouldn't wear shorts or whatever?
It's not a thing. Like, I just don't. I'm not favorable to them.
Okay.
I feel like I can't store as many things in my pockets if I don't have.
Have you ever heard of cargo shorts?
That's a legitimate. No, we're not. We do not.
That's not the answer we need.
Shorts on this podcast.
Get a fanny pack, man.
I've like gotten back into the fanny pack trend.
They're back. They came back.
They're
And
so convenient.
Mhm.
I feel like a dude when I wear one because I'm like, look at this, hands free, nothing on my shoulders, all my stuff is just.
It's right around my waist.
They actually people wear the fanny pack wrong. You're supposed to wear it with like it over your butt. That's why they call it a fanny pack. But I guess it's really easy to steal things like that.
It's better in the front. Like it's more like a kangaroo
now
pouch.
is like more of like a shoulder bag situation. Yeah.
But I'm saying like that's what it was invented like. But people just wear it however they want now.
Yeah, that's because it's 2019, baby. We got freedom. We got sartorial freedom up in here.
Yeah, everybody saw that picture of The Rock from the 90s and it looked really cool. So
It still looks really cool. You use past tense on that, but I want to push back on that.
Yeah, let's push back on the present coolness of The Rock.
all right, so like I feel like he's at the coolest he can be right now until he decides to run for president.
So he looks like he's his bag of skin filled with bowling balls is what he looks like now. He's gotten way huger than he's ever been when he was a wrestler.
Brother, Hollywood don't test for nothing. Let me tell you that.
I feel like he was about to go down the trend of like pretty washed just because of the movies he was in, but then he like really redeemed himself in my eyes because he went down to Hawaii to protest the building of the satellite. Is that what they were building down there?
Oh, they were building the telescope.
Telescope, yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, they were trying to build a telescope. It was like the U.S. government building this it was going to be on sacred Hawaiian land, and Native Hawaiians were like, no, thank you. But they said it a lot less politely and a lot more organized, and they've been really doing the damn thing. And The Rock went down and really, he was there and supporting, and I was like, okay. I mean, I feel like, it's like he is Native Hawaiian, but money, I think, sometimes makes you forget where you came from. So.
Is he from Hawaii?
I think that
He's
I know he's Samoan.
Samoan.
Like he's part Samoan, part black. But I don't know. Either way, like it's interesting. I heard a rumor like I thought he was like a Republican or something.
I think he's like that, but
is he like a never Trumper?
He's like no,
or did he just sort of like
I think
switch
he's just
or
like
something?
historically not spoken on it, but he seems like he's like a center left kind of like Republican, like
Yeah.
maybe when all this like
Or like a center left.
maybe when all this
like
like
Democrat now.
maybe when like the fervor. I think he's gonna be like a 2024 candidate. Is basically what's gonna be.
He's
The
one of
Rock
those,
versus
like,
Trump.
I'm fine with the gays marrying. I just don't want my
Yeah.
taxes to go up. Kind of
Yeah.
Republican. Which
Yeah.
I just assume everyone in Hollywood besides Susan Sarandon is that.
Like
It's like the drill tweet again.
Just
no,
like
wait, no,
Arnold,
that's not a drill tweet.
Just like
it's
Arnold
maple cocaine.
Schwarzenegger ran for public office as a Republican, he also will probably do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why would you want to be a Republican? Like, why would you want to be a politician in general? Unless you're like us and care about stuff.
Well, I guess The Rock's kind of got a whole bootstraps thing. Like, he's got a thing where like he had that app, and I think he had a TV show about like revitalizing people's lives through like hard work and
Wait,
like.
what?
Yeah, you didn't know he had a reality show about like fixing people's lives, and he like made somebody go to their own fake funeral, like he's Tom Sawyer.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
That feels very 2000, early 2000s.
That was actually like 3 years ago.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah, Jeff, can you look up The Rock's reality TV show where he bar rescued people's lives?
I mean, did he like what is that? Iyanla? Is that how you pronounce it?
Pardon?
There's like that woman who's like on the OWN network, and she's like, Iyanla, fix my life. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. Oh my God. But I just remember, yeah, any of those like fix my life shows, they make me so uncomfortable.
Wake Up Call, yeah. I remember there was even a thing, like there was an app to go along with this show.
Look at that jacket he's wearing with spikes
That
on the
was in
shoulders. It
November
cuts off the
2018.
midriff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't even long ago.
That's less than a year ago.
Only one celebrity. This is from Vice. But only one celebrity is mighty enough to host a reality competition so metal it makes an American Ninja Warrior look like a baking show. This is so Vice.
Yeah.
This January, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has a series called The Titan Games coming to
Oh
NBC.
no!
This is not it.
This is his Ninja Warrior.
But
like,
that jacket with the spikes and the cut off midriff.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I gotta get that.
This was like
he's like a road warrior now.
No. This was like a year or so before that, but it's called Wake Up Call, and I remember because they had an app to go along with it where The Rock will wake up and it like sends you an alarm.
It's The Rock. Yeah, I remember that.
And like he sends you a motivational message, like where you just get pumped to go to the gym and get yoked. You know, you're gonna get these boulder shoulders, brother.
It's available on Prime.
The opposite of the MyFitnessPal, who sends you like very passive aggressive motivational.
No, this is
messages.
like in your face.
Like I remember one time I didn't log in for a couple days, and they just sent me a message that said, "These messages seem like they're probably not helpful, so we'll stop."
Oh,
I was like, "All right."
They have like
I do remember this.
App
The
grief-
Rock Clock.
app grief is like a thing because like I use Tinder and like I stopped using it for a while because like I either forgot my login on purpose or just like didn't want to do
deleted it.
And like it just sent me a thing. It's like, oh, you're playing pretty hard to get, aren't you? And I'm like, get out of here,
passive
Tinder.
aggressive phone. Stop. Get out of here. Oh.
Get out of your stupid push notification.
Phones were a mistake, man. We should never have gotten these things because now they're like bolted to us, and they're like like an anchor, but also the connection to everything at the same time.
Marconi, brother, if I ever meet you in person.
That
Alexander Graham Bell, whatever.
That's just a regular phone. I'm talking about cell phones.
we're anti all.
You just
phones.
like took out the radio and the telephone guy.
Hey man,
I
I'm burning down these sacred statues, man.
I think Marconi actually stole the idea of radio from somebody.
Yeah, you know who
it might have
stole-
been Bell. I don't know. These guys are all
It was
shysters
probably from a
anyway.
woman.
No. So here's a hot take. No invention is actually original ever. They're all built, and it's actually not even a hot take. But like every invention is just the sum of like all previous knowledge, just like with a tweak. You know what I mean? That's all inventions are, and we decided that like the Elon Musks and Steve Jobs of the world deserve everything in our society. Like Jeff Bezos decided that he just wanted to like use the post office and like create an internet shop, and it's like, wow, look at this genius. You know, he got to deal with the post office.
You mean Jeff Bezos didn't spend time in his like alchemy lab to figure out the best way to get somebody's next day delivery?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of feelings about men and their
He's the best at exploiting workers. You know, basically that's what Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all of these jerks are.
Was he better than the robber barons circa 1920?
They're the same thing.
I don't know. I feel like they may have been a smidge better at it because at least we have weekends.
Also,
Well, that's because of the labor movement, though. Nobody gave us weekends. We took the weekends. The workers claimed the weekends and said, these 2 days, they're ours. And they've actually been winnowing away at them, too.
also coming at you, Deadwood bad guy Randolph Hearst.
William Randolph Hearst? Wait, he was in Deadwood?
Yeah, he was in Deadwood. Like,
All right, who's William Randolph Hearst?
Oh, no, not the newspaper guy. His dad,
Oh, okay.
George Hearst.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get all this gold. All them gold in them damn hills. I'm getting it."
Okay, so that's different because William Randolph Hearst was the
Yeah, he's the guy who changed the English language.
English language.
Yeah, you didn't know he like shortened a lot of words like color. That's why like English people are like,
yeah, 'cause you
that's
can
like
read the
you guys don't spell things right.
Oh, because he didn't. And he was the newspaper guy who essentially
Created yellow journalism.
Yeah, he was one of the guys. I mean, Pulitzer was the same, and all of the other folks. So, yeah. So Joseph Pulitzer.
Yeah.
It was a media trend more than anything else. I mean, they were just riding the wave. Anyway, we kind of like are bouncing from topic to topic here.
Yeah, my brain is not able to focus.
That's
on
cool.
anything for more than a minute and a half.
That's all right. It's one of the.
Which, speaking of men and their inventions,
Uh-huh.
I saw online someone's been posting. I imagine it's in New York City, but posters that say "Look around you." All these buildings were built by men supporting their families, and then
What?
underneath it just says #Men are awesome.
Whoa.
Which I was like, I mean, like, yes, men are awesome. So are women, and like, and there
I
are
don't
some
know.
not awesome men and some not awesome women.
That-
but I just.
There's
I was
like posters for the patriarchy
well, I
going
was just
all over
thinking,
the
like,
place.
there's someone who like went to their local Kinko's and like printed off, however many copies and laminated it, and then went around and staple gunned those signs. And I feel like that person maybe needs a hug.
No, that's malicious though. That's like intentionally like sort of like justifying like patriarchy, I think, right? And like again, I'm like one of these folks that are, well, I'm not gonna, I'm whatever. It's I actually think that's a problem because you're going out and justifying these things.
But also like,
is this person like coming from a good place or something?
I mean, they're clearly not in a good place.
They're not in a good place for sure.
That's not a thing that someone in a good place does.
No.
At all. Generally, if you're like posting signs and that are not like for a specific purpose, like, you're probably not in the best of places. But I also like thought the implication that there were no women involved at all in like building New York.
No,
was so
none of them. They didn't do anything. All they did
to
was
me.
stayed at home and like cooked and cleaned and kept care of the babies. Real quick, you are listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. Show's Good Morning Comrade. You can check us out online at WHIVFM.org/listen.
Yeah, what didn't I see that? I must have seen that like Friday, and I've been ruminating over it all weekend, just thinking about something else, and then that'll pop back in my head, and I'm like, huh, that's a move.
Really just letting it marinate, huh?
Just letting it marinate. I don't know that I've cared about really many things as much as that person cares about the fact that we need to acknowledge the men, specifically the men. We're not talking workers. We're not talking the labor movement.
Right.
We're not talking the construction workers unions. We're not talking about
it's just guys.
Italian Americans' contributions. We are talking about men.
Well, that's like the thing where like all white people are just white people instead of like having actual origins from like places.
It's like a default sort of situation.
Yeah,
No, but this is making a particular point and saying like it's like that is a clearly like men did all the good stuff in the world of history. I mean, it's the way it's described. I haven't seen these posters, but like that's what it sounds like to me when it hits my ears and like touches my brain. Is like this is an exclusively like pro like dude message at the exclusion of all other things, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of stuff I don't know, like somebody on incel forums would post or something.
Yeah, no, that's like, it was posted on like a men's rights thing initially. But yeah, everything you see was built by men supporting their families. #Men are awesome.
Yeah, that that's the dangerous stuff. You
Aaron,
know what I mean?
I think you might have to log off.
No,
the
no,
internet is like spoiling your brain.
I will never log off, and
Like-
neither will Aaron.
Like I don't. Ah, man, I can't imagine going to like any men's rights. Like
I read them.
It's fascinating.
It is like super fascinating, and I actually like. I feel so sad for so many people there because there's like a very deep sense of loneliness that you can tell from the posts, and there's a lot of anger, but it's anger that should be at the system, but it's misplaced towards women. So the implication of this sign specifically is that the acknowledging the contributions of women necessarily takes away from the accomplishments.
Zero-sum game, yeah.
Which is a really sad way to think about things. I don't know. I really should stop reading them because I don't know. I'm not reading to mock or anything like that. I just I'm really fascinated by the mindset, and I feel a lot of empathy, but then I know that they also hate me, so it's it's a weird mixture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because those are the same kinds of people that are like Elliot Rodger, right? The guy who shot up. Which one did that guy shoot up? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure he was a yoga studio in California.
Yeah, and he had a very specific screed about women will never ever have sex with me. I'm completely and utterly worthless, so I might as well murder a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's essentially it was 30 pages of that.
Yeah, that was his manifesto, just over and over again.
Yeah, and there's actually there's been quite a few incel murderers in that way, but then also a lot of the recent mass shootings have been specifically white supremacist, but there's also a lot of that kind of misogynistic inceldom messaging in there as well.
Yeah, they're not two specific things. There's a little bit of this, and there's a little bit of white supremacy in the incel, and there's a lot of incel in the white supremacy.
Yeah.
There's a Venn diagram where they cross over. That's intersectionality, right?
Yeah. We've talked about how I feel like messaging about feminism is a little bit off in kind of the way we're doing it right now, and I think
can you explain? Can you sort of explain?
Yeah,
what you mean by
I
that?
think there's a lot of hashtag girl power. There's a lot of men's tear jokes about men's tears and jokes about cancel all men. Men are trash. Which I'm it's definitely a release. I'm not saying that most people are very serious, but I also think that for a group who maybe hasn't been used to receiving criticism, because generally our country, white men have been centered as they're considered the default. So all stories that is considered the universal experience,
especially in a society that's very conscious about de-emphasizing race in a lot of it has historically, especially as things sort of equalize, there is a sort of strain of sort of I don't see color in the mainstream. Yeah. Basically everybody's the same and everybody's experience is the same or whatever.
Yeah, but there's it's a lot of that Gen X feminism that we've talked about in past shows, this idea that women need to be the exact same as men, or in order to be successful, you go kind of the same route a man would go.
Yeah, I've heard it defined as sort of feminism defined as women behaving masculinely.
Is that a second wave, I believe?
Yeah.
I don't know the waves.
So second wave feminism. So first wave feminism would be considered the suffragettes. Second wave feminism is, that's very simplistic, but that would be considered the burn the bras movement. There's
women in the workplace.
So the feminine mystique, if you
very Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah, and the second wave feminism, a lot of the criticisms about that specifically are that it was centered on white kind of middle class women. It wasn't women of color or poor women, because a lot of it was focused on, we want to get out, we don't want to be in the kitchen anymore, we want to be out in the workforce. Whereas, for poor women and women of color, it was never, the option to stay home with your kids was never available. So the idea that kind of wanting to be able to stay home with your children was not a feminist viewpoint, was very alienating.
Look at this housewife just perpetuating these negative stereotypes or whatever. Well, people should be able to take care of their families.
Yeah, and then so kind of we're in third wave feminism now, which is more of a,
That's the one that's very
positive.
very heavily emphasizes like the intersectionality stuff that you mentioned, which is like this very. It essentially talks about sort of like where like different parts of identities overlap, and we've talked about this in the past about the sort of like critiques that can have that people can have of that too, because when you start to focus on these very particular differences in ways that things like specifically address individual groups, you're necessarily taking it away from like the mass. So like there has to be a way to talk about the mass, because like all these things definitely do exist, but how do you know these things and sort of like use that as a uniting factor as opposed to a dividing factor? Because the way that the people that you were talking about earlier, the like cancel all men or whatever, they use it the latter way. They use it to split people up, and that's a very bourgeois, like very ruling class approach and project.
Yeah, I mean, so I can't tell you how many times I've heard the term that feminists hate men, which is it's the opposite. Mm-mm. Like I feel a lot of empathy to men, and I think a lot of the things that oppresses women also oppresses men, just in different ways. Like the idea that that masculinity means being successful in a certain type of way,
and your expectation of behavior in response to these sorts of things is very different as well.
Yeah, so like the whole thing with the men's rights, it started out of like family court, and we've talked about this before. But the idea that women were, they considered better caregivers is like an inherently patriarchal idea, because like men can be just as good, like there's not an inherent difference between women and men when it comes to being good parents. It's just the way we're socialized. It's not like there's a gene in women that men don't have to like love and care for their children.
It's a social distinction and not a biological one. It's also one that perpetuates itself, because when you start materially sort of awarding custody of children to women because they're the care gender or whatever,
which actually doesn't really happen anymore.
Right? No.
Like they default to 50-50. There has to be like either one parent has to not be fighting at all for the custody, or there has to be like a legitimately like strong reason why that custody shouldn't be shared.
Sure.
So ladies, if the man you're seeing ever tells you that their B of an ex-wife is just trying to keep their kids from them, and then the family court hates them, look a little deeper.
Examine it
just a little bit more. Just do a little digging on Facebook about
and
what kind of a dad they were.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
But just kind of going back to the intersectionality, like we go back to that all the time because it's so interesting to me. But one of the
fascinating
things that's very different that I noticed like from second wave to third wave is, so in second wave feminism, reproductive justice was like really front and center, but that was specifically surrounding access to abortion and access to birth control. But now reproductive justice is considered those things, obviously, but also the idea that if you do want to be a parent, that you can have access to healthcare, during your pregnancy and for your children and for yourself. It's the idea that if you are a woman of color, that you shouldn't have to worry about your children being murdered by police. Mm-hmm. Like that's considered.
There's a lot more of a challenge to capitalism and capitalist and I guess racist structures as well. That sort of it comes along with it. At least from certain sets. It's not universal, unfortunately, because there are still people that are like, yes, like Hillary Clinton is everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like anyone who says that Beyonce is like, I love Beyonce. Bayhive, don't fight me. But anyone who thinks that Beyonce is like the be all end all of feminism is like probably not.
She's married to Jay-Z, for Christ's sake.
Which we're gonna say there's like a super interesting Terry Gross interview with Jay-Z from a few years ago, and it was like a lot about like how do you justify like calling yourself a feminist and having all this like really like misogynistic and violent like lyrics about women. And he was like, I wrote all that when I was like 22, and
Jay-Z?
and I'm like 40 now, and I was that's where I was living, that's the time I was in. I was like on the streets, I was dealing drugs, and he's like, I've changed. And I was like, well, I mean, you don't have to sing it anymore, but like, or rap it, I guess. But I like, so with this, I have my own viewpoints about these things. But like, you two are men. Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have feelings about like the whole idea of like when you hear cancel all men, or when you hear like kind of the more intense rhetoric.
It's fine.
It doesn't affect
Is it
me
actually,
like
though?
personally. Like I don't get all sad about it, but I do like I realize that people will like sort of take that and they'll grab a whole like especially our enemies, right? Our class enemies, the ruling class. They will sort of take hold of that kind of like language and rhetoric that's flying around and use it against us cynically. And I think that's sort of where.
So you can't have any rhetoric because someone's going to use it against you?
Well, no, you need to be mindful that this can be used against you. I didn't say you can't say anything. I'm saying that when things are sort of like utilized and sort of rolled out in that fashion, then they are essentially it's like an available weapon. It's a chair that you can use to smash your opponent with over the head.
What?
Or that your opponent can use to smash you over the head.
I mean, I think the idea that you shouldn't let people say the things that they like want to express.
No,
is, like,
but like,
bad.
who's not letting anybody do anything?
No,
you
saying,
can say like, don't say this because this is why, and this is why it's a problem.
But like you said, like it's used as an easy weapon, but like it should be said. Like these things should be said.
Cancel all men should be said. It needs to be said.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Because of the thing that I just said.
I see both your points, but I also worry sometimes that it's not necessarily that I think no one like that people shouldn't say stuff because it could be used against us, but I also think it sometimes breeds discontent. It's like cyclical. So it's it's one thing to vent and be around people who understand what you're talking about, and that's why feminist spaces for people of color, like all those things when you're kind of with same members of like the same marginalized group are important because they get your experience. But at the same time, I sometimes, I a lot of like, at least kind of the more vocal kind of hashtag cancel men people. It's like they've it's within the framework of capitalism. So now it's become like it's a business almost. So instead of
it's a brand. There is a lot of branding around that kind of stuff too.
Move on from our feelings and kind of. Okay, well, how do we navigate having like these experiences and how do we make our lives better? I feel like sometimes we get stuck in kind of those feelings of unfairness and don't really ever see a way out.
Not to say that it's not unfair either. Real quick, you are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. You can listen online at whivfm.org/listen. So anyway, you were making a point?
Yeah, but things like that are like protective of like groups, because if you're gonna like come be interested in a group and you can't deal with something innocuous like cancel all men, which is like the mildest one, by the way, doesn't even necessarily mean anything. It's just like, who's gonna buck about that? Like, who really with their mind in the right place is really gonna care about
so
that?
There's difference between doing something in a space that's sort of closed off, that's not that's like a space where it's just a bunch of people talking together, and then there's also sort of like spaces that are public, things like Twitter or like podcasts or radio shows or whatever.
So who are you worried this is gonna put out? Like,
put out? What do you mean put out?
When someone says cancel all men, what are you worried? Who are you worried is gonna like respond badly to that?
So Elliot Rodger and like the people who like murder people based off of these things, and also the like Tucker Carlsons of the world who want to come out and say like, well, actually the left has a problem with these hoity-toity lined up academics. Have you ever seen his freaking white supremacist talk show? He's actually like fairly clever. Hold on, dude.
You're worried about the opinions of the worst people in the world.
Yeah, he's the worst people in the world, and he's got a huge audience.
So I don't think we need to worry about what they say, because they're going to come up with, with the Me Too movement, for instance. The Me Too movement has been very, on point, and I think very nuanced. A lot of it has been very nuanced in the conversation, and there still has been people who've like, has it gone too far?
There are critiques that are legitimate, but it's. I'm not trying to say like it's all garbage or whatever, but there are critiques that are that I've heard that are legitimate. Oh
yeah. Well, all movements have critiques,
sure,
and we need to be able to have them. It's nuanced.
Yes.
But to go to Scott's point, I feel this way not because I feel like I need to do so for any other group, but like for my own group. Like for instance, when I was like first kind of getting in, like trying to figure myself out and like come into myself as like a fully formed human being, I got really deep down into kind of the like life is unfair for women, like thing. And
Which is not a wrong instinct.
It's not. And it's like, it was something I had to process. But what I ended up finding is that all the media I was consuming was about how unfair life is for women.
Throwing fuel
all
on
the
that
people I was
fire.
talking to was about how unfair life was for women. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like I'm miserable. Like I'm like, none of this is untrue. Like these are all true things, but I need to figure out how I'm going to navigate in the world and not have this be the defining characteristic for myself. And I feel like I'm in a place now where like I can do that, where there's certain things that I'm like, okay, I do need to engage with this and I do need to address this, but there's other stuff that I'm like, all right, well, that's not going to change for me right now. And that's like fine. And or not fine. Like it's not fair and it's not ever going to be fair and it's not ever going to be fine. But like, it's like for my own sense of peace and like well-being, I can't really engage with it.
And on
Does
this
that make
point,
sense?
yeah. And on this point also, like, there is a very like real sense that like this kind of stuff, like viewed in the mainstream, like if you want to use it for like a mainstream cause, that is never going to be a universal message that like it literally cleaves the entire working class in half.
What, gender?
Yeah. Or like if it's like 50.1%, women or 49.9% men, you're literally like you're literally cutting the working class in half if you're cutting like if you're essentially saying like kill all men. Like even if there's a section of like men who go along with that, there's a lot of women that wouldn't go along with that either. Like that is not a message that has a huge amount of carry. Now everybody needs healthcare. Yeah, that's a message that people can connect to. If you essentially, people think that they paid too little, at their job. People hate their freaking boss, they hate their landlords, and they hate the fact that they're being, exploited by all of these things. And that's a much broader message than anything. That's what unites the working class. Those are the things that brings the working class together.
I mean, it's like pop music. Not everybody wants to listen to the most broad thing. People want to listen to their own segmented little things. People besides having a broad identity have other things that make them
distinct. I know, and I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm saying it's not strategic.
But also, this is an interesting conversation though, because it's not strategic in the way we're thinking about current strategy. But like ultimately, there is like 51% of the population is female. So that is a really broad section of the population. So,
but it's not the whole working class.
Well, sure, but when we're talking about the working class, right? But we're not so there's a lot of people who wouldn't consider themselves part of the working class.
Right,
who,
but
probably are, but like might identify more with kind of their gender or yeah, so it's just interesting, like this conversation specifically, because it is all about how we're framing things. And I don't know how you would frame it in a gendered way, but
kill all rich men, kill all billionaire men.
Yeah, I'll kill all.
Just kill all billionaires.
But it's like, but it is interesting, like the kind of being female in kind of like a left space, because sometimes these conversations do come up, and it is considered to be like, oh, you're like dividing, or oh, this is like a niche issue, and it's like it's not really like a niche issue.
I don't know. That's like if you said in a room full of women, just a general population of women, kill all men. I'm pretty sure like 5% of them would agree with you at the most.
From all the rooms you've been in.
Are you?
And essentially, when I'm saying kill all men, there's very few people I've seen that like actually have that viewpoint. It's
that's my point. That's my point.
Yeah, but yeah,
But like it's not even like it's just a thing. It's like rhetoric, like you said. But like if you said kill all rich people, you don't think Tucker Carlson's gonna have a field day with that?
No, I don't give a
well, so why do you care about that one, but you don't care about the other one? Like because you care about the kill all men thing, but you don't care about the rich people.
Because in the grand scheme of our society, there is a small group of people who have all of the resources and all of the power that benefit from these sort of divisions from the working class. They exploit it. They exploit race lines. They exploit gender lines.
We know that.
Right. And so don't give them that tool.
Well, sure, but okay, so
that's not your tool to say they can't have.
No, bruh. If it's cutting up the working class, yes, it is my tool.
But that's the thing. So one of the things to remember is that, yes, there is these economic exploitation, but there is gendered exploitation.
Yes,
and it's committed by working class people
against
other working class people.
Yes.
And that's not even necessarily something that's it is exploited by capitalism, but just ending capitalism is not going to end that.
No, and I'm not saying that it will. I'm not saying that it will. I'm not suggesting that it will. I am against all like all kinds of oppressions and stuff like that. My point is,
Jeff doesn't care about women.
Yes, exactly. But because I'm against kill all men, that means I hate all women. That's the only reverse argument.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the corollary.
Yeah, the Tucker Carlson School of Thought.
Right. But anyway, that's like having a conversation with somebody, but in particular that I'm thinking about right now. But no. My point is that these sorts of things are leaned on by like the ruling class. They're used. They're pushed. These in a lot of sense realities. Right? There is inequality amongst like the races and the genders and all the stuff. The thing is that if we're cutting ourselves up into these little like identity-based bits, we are screwed.
Well, so that's where I disagree with you, because I feel like the DSA does a really good job of kind of acknowledging individual identities within kind of like the framework. So there's a feminist socialist group,
right, which is a part of the larger organization,
part of the larger framework. But that's not what you meant, is to say like we shouldn't allow people to bring their like the different issues with the different identities. But when you say like, oh, letting us be divided, I think that can also be like that kind of phrasing can also be exploited. It's like, oh, well, they don't care about, this is like actually this identity is like the most important one to me, and they don't care about that. Does that make sense?
Right. And that's not what I mean.
Well, no.
I think divisions are important amongst people because no one is identically the same. Like there are like divisions in identity.
Yes, I'm not saying that there aren't. I've said time and time again that they are real, and there's actual oppression and there's actual inequality amongst the working class. Not every working class person.
Not everybody thinks of themselves as a worker, Jeff. Like you have
in a sense they actually kind of do. They just don't think of themselves actively as such.
Well, sorry, I'm always wrong then.
No, bro, like if you go to work, then you're a worker.
Yeah, but people don't think of themselves that way. People think of themselves by their identities a lot, which like seem to be downplaying a great deal.
I'm not. How am I downplaying it? Tell me how I'm downplaying it.
You were like, oh, I want everybody to see themselves as a worker. Seeing yourself as a woman will divide everybody.
No.
If you see yourself as a worker, this is really
that is
weird.
not the argument that I'm making.
Well, you're not making your argument well.
No, I'm not saying that you only come from one perspective. If you're out front and this is your sort of like level of engagement, and this is how you're pushing your entire politics, then you're doing it at the exclusion of you can potentially be doing it at the exclusion of other things. And the ruling class, the Neera Tandons and the Sarah Palins and the Hillary Clintons and all these people, they use that to cut us down.
Yeah,
they do it all the time.
Yeah, they're gonna take literally anything to do it. Like they don't need like your talking points to use against you. They have all their money and power and all these news organizations to use. Like you are thinking that it's your own rhetoric they're using against you.
No,
they're using the power structure, Jeff.
No, dude. Oh,
well, so as a woman in a leftist space, I see where both of you are coming from, because I do think like the Neera Tandons of the world do really. It's that we've talked about this before. It's that using the language of victimhood, and it's like, okay, well, I can speak with authority on things because
standpoint epistemology.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I've also been in leftist spaces where, the idea that I have maybe different. That capitalism affects me differently than it would like someone who's a man. Like
that's legitimate.
Yeah, which is legitimate, but like it doesn't always. A lot of men in leftist spaces don't view it as legitimate. I know that you do.
Yes, I understand this.
You do. Like I feel like that was one of the reasons why Occupy Wall Street wasn't as kind of long term as it could have been, and it's because it was very much, it did not bring in, and that wasn't only like male female like gender.
No, they had a lot of problems at Occupy Wall Street.
Any intersectionality at all. But so
they had a lot of libertarians at Occupy Wall Street. They had like a celebration, or they had like a memorial for like Steve Jobs' death. Like Steve Jobs is the class enemy, Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like.
That's definitely a contributing factor.
Kind of the rhetoric, though, is like I haven't quite figured out where I fall yet on it, just because it is like it can be so. It's like it is a release. Like it's definitely it's like something a dude does something awful to you, and it's like you want to just like scream and cry, but instead you can be like, whatever, canceled.
Yeah,
like,
and
canceled.
I'm not even saying that there's not spaces for it.
Yeah.
I've said already in this conversation that spaces for sort of like self-therapy that can be based on identity. I don't care. Like, that's fine. My point is that like the organizing that you're doing, purely being on those lines, is like super isolating.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you on that. Like, I really get frustrated
because you're
with
creating a bubble
who are only about feminism and who like aren't on like
at the exclusion of other things.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe we're talking about the same thing and just feeling differently about it, or not feeling differently about it, really conceptualizing it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we got to get out of here. You can listen to us on WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. The show is Good Morning Comrade. You can also check us out on our website, goodmorningcomrade.com, where you can see all of our older shows. You can check out all of our information on Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. We're posted on Instagram now, right?
We are.
Hey,
it's me.
Instagram. It's
poster.
Aaron, the poster. So, yeah, check us out on there, and we will talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.